Tonight is Monday, October 8th, 2018. This is the regular city council meeting for the city of St. Peter. It is 7:00 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. Will all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have our minutes from the September 24th, 2018 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 5 through 7. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. First up tonight, we have a public hearing, and it is concerning a BHS bonds for host city approval. And Todd, if you want to go through our guidelines for public hearings?
Mayor and members, as you know, you've approved rules for holding of public hearings. So it generally goes like this. The staff makes a presentation relating to the item that is on the agenda. Limited to 5 minutes. We hope they provide factual information and stay on the topic. And after all the evidence has been heard, the mayor closes the hearing. If there's action to be taken, as there is tonight, typically it's later on in the meeting agenda. On occasion, you'll have hearings where another meeting or two later, you'll have action item on. During the council discussion portion of the meeting, citizens aren't any longer allowed to provide for commentary. And again, for council members, generally, you do not engage in exchange during the public hearing portion. That's the rules.
With that being said, we will open the public hearing for the BHS bonds host city approval at 7:04 p.m. and it is Monday, October 8th, 2018.
Mayor, members, you've discussed this a couple of occasions at workshops and ramping up to this action item. Notice has been posted on your website. As per your rules, Benedictine Health Systems is wishing to purchase the nursing home from the city. I will mention that this was part of the development plan that was originally established in 2006, and the lease agreement that we have and development agreement with Benedictine Health System provides for the pertinent points related to the transaction. What you're looking at tonight relates just to a host city bond issue. It provides for no financial or moral obligation to provide for a payout. And in fact, the city that would be doing the issuance or providing the conduit issuance is Bethel. You've worked with them and Lake Crystal and Owatonna in the past on projects such as this. I'm happy to answer any more questions that you might have. It should be noted that this is for a $20 million issuance. Again, the city has no financial or moral obligation to provide for payment of this debt.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone that would like to speak as far as the applicants and add anything to what Todd has already just told us? If not, is there anyone that would like to speak publicly about this issue? If not, does the council have any questions at this time? We will be discussing it for resolution later. No? All right. That being said, we will close the public hearing at 7:06 p.m. on Monday, October 8th, 2018. Next up, we will address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda resolution is on page 18. And for the first time ever that I remember, it includes the schedule of disbursements for September 20th, 2018 through October 6th, 2018. Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda, Steve?
Todd, on page 10 of the accounts payable list, there is a air permit renewal to Golder Associates, and it's for the power. Is that for backup power? Do you know, I mean, what is that for?
That is for consulting and filling out the permit information that's required by the state of Minnesota related to your electric generation plant at Broadway, so your 12 megawatts of generation.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? The resolution approving the consent agenda, as I said, is on page 18. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any more questions? Call the roll, please, Bart.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Kwame.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next up is unfinished business, which we have none, so we will move right into new business. And first thing we have is a real estate listing agreement, and Mr. Willie is here tonight to speak to us.
Yeah, Mayor Zeman, members of the City Council. Back in August, Pam Schreier from Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership and I had arranged some appointments and made some cold calls with realtors in the Mankato area. We had opportunities to speak to the St. Peter-based realtors, and so we wanted to go to Mankato and let those realtors know about the 2% buyer's rep commission that was offered, about the mortgage products that were available, and also then to hand out some maps, some site plans, as well as promotional material. We took an opportunity to do a cold call at True Real Estate in Mankato, and even though they have a St. Peter office, I wanted to make contact with Jen True directly and talk about what we have going on. So Pam and I had an opportunity to meet with Jen and her son Tyler Myhawk True, and all day long, one of the common questions had been, why don't you have them listed with an agent, and why aren't you on the multiple listing? And the answer was that we want to maintain the workforce affordability without having to pay another close to $4,000 seller's commission. We already are providing a $9,500 discount of the price, and it sounded counterproductive to backfill that then with commissions. And also, how would we choose a realtor to offer it to remain equitable and to remain impartial? At that time, Ms. True made the unsolicited offer that her agency would list the homes, they would have access to the multiple listing, and True Real Estate would take no commission on the sales rep. They'd still have a 2% buyer's commission if they were to bring us a buyer, but they would list that as our agent on the multiple listing at no cost to us. The benefits to True are listed within the agenda packet from a letter from Eric Norsgaard from her office, and essentially they're looking to have some exposure as a new entry into the St. Peter real estate market. They also then want to build relationships with both the city as well as the buyers, potential buyers. It's very similar to what we were asking people to do in the very first two neighborhoods, except we were offering a very small $750 commission, whether they were what was for the buyer's rep. So Eric Norsgaard and I took the opportunity to kind of fine-tune what Jen's offer was after I picked my jaw up off the floor. I would recommend that you enter into the agreement with True to list the houses at 0%. I believe it will exponentially increase our exposure and visibility. We'll have more than 100 local real estate agents having access to the information. I would expect that it would increase the number of showings of the property. And again, there's no cost or no commission being charged. So essentially on the two houses that we have for sale now, savings of anywhere between $3,730 and $3,880. There's a listing contract included in your packet. You'll notice there are 4 options that we could choose from. I would respectfully request that you allow staff and True Realty to make the decisions as to the options. One would be obviously to have the listing displayed on the internet. 2, the listing address of the property. The other 2, I want to have some discussions with True as to whether or not we wanted an automatic valuation system where essentially the MLS will come up with a suggested price, and then also whether or not to allow the opportunity for public comment and review them. We will not list the properties for lease, and we will make sure that City Attorney Brandt handles the closings on behalf of the city. The matter was on the EDA's agenda for last Thursday. However, we were unexpectedly able to assemble a quorum, so the meeting was canceled at last-minute notice. So the EDA has not had an opportunity to comment or to review this in full, although it was submitted and distributed in a packet. Mayor, there is a resolution on page 31 that would accept True's offer, and then also would authorize City Administrator Prafke to enter into the listing agreements on behalf of the city as they may become from time to time. Mayor Zeman, I answer any questions that you or members of the council have.
Okay, questions? Russ, I have one. So what happened, so nothing changes if another local or any other realtor comes in?
We've discussed this, and this was an unsolicited offer, so I do not intend to go outreach to other realtors, but if there are realtors that are aware of the agreement that True's offered and are willing to match those, I would suggest that we'd recommend that we enter into the same group, and then we set up a rotation amongst the realtors.
Right. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to that if another real estate company has a buyer.
Yes, sir.
What, and do they sell for, let's use round numbers, I know it's not this high, but 200,000, what percent does that real estate company get?
They would get 2% or $4,000 in that case.
All right.
True would not take any commission.
Okay. When does the EDA meet again?
October 25th.
Okay. All right. I would have liked to have seen the EDA because of the local influence and people that are on that EDA take a look at this before we would do something with it. I just think, they're there for a reason. I'm not sure why you didn't have a quorum or couldn't meet, but I really would like to have them have an input because that's what they serve on these commissions for. So that's just my feeling on it. Anyone else have any questions?
Your two council reps were there. I mean, the repository of all the wisdom one could ever want, I think, on a commission, but I see your point. But I don't know that they have contacted, anybody from the EDA has contacted Russ with objections or concerns or so.
And we did look through it, we just couldn't act officially on it because
Right.
we didn't have a quorum.
Got it. All right. Any other questions or comments? The resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with True Real Estate to provide for real estate listing of Traverse Green speculative homes and access to the multiple listing service appears on pages 31 and 32. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions at this time? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Koenig.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Nay.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution passes with one nay. Thanks, Russ. Next up, we have a hospital purchasing authorization. And
This
Todd
is
and
really me.
George.
George is here to back me up if there happens to be some
right.
substantial problem. Let me give you just a little bit of history, if I may, Mayor and members. As you may recall, you've talked about this at a couple of previous workshops. This is generated, or the genesis of this relates to a recommendation from the Hospital Commission that came to you for an unspecified amount of change within the hospital's purchasing authority, which is within your city code. After discussion with the council at its first occasion and some discussion amongst staff, including George and Lori and I and others, we proposed a modification to you at a previous workshop. That modification would provide for a threshold change from $35,000 to $50,000. As you may recall, you modified your internal purchasing policy for the city to match that number, and so these seem to gel quite nicely. There's information included in your packet, but essentially what we've done based on the workshop that you had on Monday night was you'll see the ordinance that we provided for publishing the posted notice per state statute is on page 35. That represents and is exactly what we provided to you on Monday night. Monday night, however, you ask for a couple of modifications. That ordinance is on page 37, and it's my belief that's probably the ordinance that you're going to work from this evening is on page 37. One other question that was brought up in relation to the ordinance overall was, Gal, this kind of makes it look like they can purchase anything they want or add on to the building as long as it's less than $50,000. That is not the case. We provided a portion of the ordinance within your packet that stipulates that is solely within the purview of the city council and is not something that the hospital commission can do on its own. So to recap, we provided notice per state statute. The genesis of this was a request from the hospital commission. And really what we're looking to do here is change the authorization that needs council approval in advance from $35,000 to $50,000 and above. You'll also see within the ordinance, which is not a change, that the hospital is required to follow all your rules and the state rules related to bidding, etc. Again, it's my understanding that you're probably more interested in looking at the ordinance and starting on page 37. And if you take action, maybe that's the best place for this to start.
Questions? Yes.
I do have one question. Maybe it's not in this section. The first paragraph in section 628, we have a policy in place for things less than $50,000. They're not capital items. Capital items are defined as things above $50,000, and it gives a procedure for between $50,000 and $100,000. But I'm not seeing what the procedure is for capital items greater than $100,000.
John, that is not included in the section that was modified for change.
That's in a different section.
That's correct.
Okay,
and so there's still a requirement for that. It does not limit this between
Right.
50 and 100,000. It just stipulates the process between between 50 and 100,000.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions? As Todd stated, the ordinance that we will be working off of is the one with the language changes that we proposed last week at the workshop, and that appears on page 37 and 38. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any other questions? Call roll, please.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Mayor Zima.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin. Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Ordinance is approved. Next up, we have the BHS Bond Request that we had the public hearing on. Todd?
Mayor and members, what's recommended within your packet starting on page 39 is providing host city approval for revenue obligations in an approximate amount of $20 million related to the Benedictine Health Systems and their purchase of the nursing home and other facility located in St. Peter. Again, you don't have any financial or moral obligation for the repayment on this. This is a conduit issuance through the city of Bethel. And as I mentioned during the public hearing portion, this is not unusual to you. You've actually been in both chairs, the conduit issuer and the host chair previously. In this instance, you would be in the host chair. Happy to try and answer any questions that you might have. Certainly we have folks that from Kennedy and Graven that represent BHS and some BHS representatives here as well. But I'm happy to provide any answer that I can.
Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
So we have to vote on this just because it's in the city limits then?
It is not just because it's in the city limits, but it's really, you might want to think about it as a cooperative agreement between the city of Bethel and the city of St. Peter. The reason that the city of Bethel is involved in this has to do with bank qualified financing. And that, as you may recall, you've issued more than $10 million in debt this year, really related to the hospital and the hospital project. And so to be able to do this more cost effectively, Bethel has agreed to do that work if you agree to allow them the opportunity to do that.
Any other questions? Once again, I'd like to point out that this is no cost at all to the city, just our time here tonight. Susie?
Todd, for people who are watching, they might be interested because they have a family member or a loved one who resides at this facility. Can you talk just a little bit about whether or not people would expect any change in the management or the way the facility is operated, just for folks at home?
In my discussion with the chief financial officer previously, there's no planned substantive change in the operations or who's operating. If one of your parents is there, they're going to get the same great care that they've gotten before. One of your council members serves on the board for that group as well, and so is aware of how operations are determined and provides advice to the management team there.
And that council member will continue in the same?
Oh, sorry about that. We did test the batteries before the meeting. Why don't you use somebody else's mic, Susie, if you would, for a few moments. Sorry about that.
That's fine. So just to say, the city will still have that ability to provide input and oversight through that council member on the commission.
I believe that will continue to be in place. At the time that this whole agreement was put together back in 2005, 2006-ish, that was embedded within the development agreement. It also represents the model that BHS has used at the vast, if not all of their facilities.
John?
When this was originally set up in 2006, it was arranged that, and I don't think it was called BHS at the time?
Yeah, Benedictine Health Systems.
It was set up so that it would be, the facility would be built in this community, and the city would assist in that, and the city would own it, and they would lease from the city, and at some point, they'd have the option to buy it, at some point in the future, the option to buy it. But it was set up so that it would be of no cost to the city, but also no profit to the city, that the city would have all its costs covered, but not really make a profit on this. And I assume that now, 12 years later, this $20 million is a lot of money, but it's not for profit for the city.
That is correct, John, and not all of that 20 million would come to the city. Really, the sum is an approximate sum. I don't believe that it's been finalized yet, and it relates to not only purchase of this facility, but the Heritage Meadows facility, which was previously owned or is owned by the Good Samaritan folks. And then it's the legal costs and those kind of things. You are exactly right. Our goal and the agreement was to break even, cover your costs.
Steve?
Mr. Pratsky, you mentioned that the city has a limit of 10 million on, I don't know how to describe it, but as a conduit for revenue bonds, or is that inclusive of the conduit relationship and also those issued that the city would facilitate, with a project that we would take on?
Steve, I think, or Councilmember Grams, the question that you're asking, if I understand it appropriately, is getting on the fringes of my knowledge related to this. This would be a problem if we were doing the conduit. So you would have exhausted your amount, and the cost of issuance and the interest would likely have gone up for the Benedictines if you had been doing the issuance. That is not the case for the city of Bethel in this instance. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Okay.
Thank you. I
Any
don't
other
want to tax you anymore.
Any other questions? If not, the resolution consenting to and approving the issuance by the city of Bethel of revenue obligations to finance and refinance projects located in the city of St. Peter and taking other action with respect thereto appears on pages 48 to 51. Is there a motion for approval?
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions at this time? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Mayor Ziegler?
Aye.
Councilmember Garland?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. And I want to thank you for stopping in tonight and being concerned that enough to be here to show up for this. Thank you.
It's wonderful when a plan comes together, even after all those many years ago.
Next up, we have Mr. Shugold, I believe, is here tonight, and we're going to talk about the warming house attendant wage scale. Joey?
Mr. Mayor and councilors, before you have the opportunity to take some action on an official warming house wage scale for the Recreation and Leisure Services Department. This position serves Veterans Park warming house during the winter months when we're all able to make some ice out there and have skaters. And currently there is no official wage scale, so we've just been operating without an official scale. The scale in place in your packet is in line with many of our similar positions, and it would be my recommendation that we adopt an official wage scale for this position. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We discussed this at the workshop last Monday, but does anybody else have any other questions? If not, the resolution adopting the wage scale for the warming house rink attendants appears on page 54. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any more questions, or any questions at this time? We're letting you off easy, Joy. Call the roll,
Doesn't
please.
seem fair.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Blunt.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Thanks, Joy. Next, we move into reports. The only thing I have is a reminder for those that are planning to attend this Thursday and Friday, the 11th and 12th, or one day or both days of the SIMPA meeting in Bloomington?
Yes, it is.
Bloomington. That's all I have. And Todd?
Mayor members, I have three kind of quick ones just to provide notice and get on your calendars as well as the calendars of other interested folks. Do want to mention our November meeting schedule has just a slight adjustment due to a holiday on the 12th, Veterans Day holiday, so our meeting will be on Tuesday, November 13th. Also want to mention that hydrant flushing is starting actually, well, in about a half an hour, give or take a little bit. So we want to alert folks. Most people in town might not even see this is going on, and that might be especially true for the next couple of days where we have drizzle anyway. You used to be able to maybe look out on the street and see a wet area and could think, oh, maybe hydrants are being flushed. But please make sure to check your water before you're washing clothes or running water for something else. Very rarely does it happen, but on occasion it shakes loose a little bit of rust. And so you just want to run until that rust goes away. It's all safe, but we do this on a very, very regular basis. So want to make sure that people pay attention to that and know that that's going on. We also want to mention that the leaf collection schedule will start on the 22nd of October. This year we start on the south end, and then as we get to the first week of November, we will be on the north end. And so if people have questions, please feel free to call Public Works. They'll be happy to let you know where we're at and how we're doing. And I don't know if you noticed, but we've got a lot of leaves this year. They haven't quite started to fall, so we'll see within the next couple of weeks whether we really get the fall. It is important to mention that on occasion, due to other circumstances, we modify these dates. If the leaves don't really start falling, or we do modify these dates, and we also want to make sure that people understand they can certainly haul their own leaves down to the compost facility there at the corner of St. Julian and Swift anytime, day or night, and on the weekends you can use that. So, Mayor and members, that's all I have for you tonight.
Anyone else? Anything to add? No one. If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. 28 minutes later.